This video is going to talk about multiplying integers. Now, really, when you multiply integers, there's only one real difference between that and multiplying whole numbers, and that's the negative sign that sometimes will appear. So let's just get to an example. So in our first problem, we have a negative 6 times 3. Well, first of all, I'm going to ignore all the negative signs, and I'm just going to do 6 times 3, which is 18. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to count how many negative signs I had. I had one negative sign here. So in this case, the negative sign will stay because there is an odd number of negative signs. Let's look at the next example. Negative 4 times negative 5. Again, the first thing we're going to do is ignore the signs and just multiply. 4 times 5 is 20. Now we're going to look at how many negative signs we had. 1, 2. These two negative signs are going to cancel each other out, and our final answer will be left as a positive 20. In the next two examples, I'm going to have 3 factors instead of just 2, but the procedure will be just the same. First of all, I'm going to go through and multiply all of the whole parts together. So 4 times 1 times 3, and then I'll worry about the negative signs. So 4 times 1 is 4, and 4 times 3 is 12. So I'll write down my 12, and now I'll go back and count how many negative signs I have. 1, 2, 3. I have 3 negative signs here, so that's an odd number, so the negative sign will stay, and my final answer will be negative 12. In our next example, we have 5 times negative 2 times a negative 2. So in this case, I'm only going to be concerned with multiplying the whole parts first, and then go back and worry about the negatives. 5 times 2 is 10, and 10 times 2 is 20. So my value is 20, but let's go back and check out the negative signs. I have 1, 2 negative signs. That's an even number of negative signs, so my value will stay positive. I want to take a moment now and explain a little better as to why, if we have an odd number of negative signs, is our answer negative, and if we have an even number of negative signs, our answer is positive. So let's look at this example. We have the opposite of negative 3. Well, anytime we have 2 negative signs right next to each other, they're going to cancel each other out. So in this case, we have a pair of negative signs, and they cancel each other out, and we're left with only one negative sign left. So this value will remain as a negative 3. Notice in this case, it was an odd number of negatives, and we were left with a negative. And here's why. Because every time we have a pair of negative signs, they can cancel out. And if I'm taking pairs out, and we have an odd number, we're always going to have one left over, kind of like the odd man out. So he'll always stay and keep that number negative. Whereas in this example, when I have the opposite of negative 5, well, these two negative signs are going to go together, and they're going to cancel each other out. And these two negative signs are going to go together, and they're going to cancel each other out. And all the negative signs are now gone, and we're left with a positive 5. So anytime you have an even number of negative signs, every one of them is going to get paired up with another, because there's an even number, and it's divisible by 2. So you can take these two out, and these two out, and so on. So all the negatives will go away, and you're left with a positive sign. So again, the rule is an odd number of negative signs leaves a number negative, while an even number of negative signs leaves our value positive.